Most people assume if you're building a tabletop role playing game, you're building on Dungeons and Dragons system. We didn't. And honestly, a huge part of why traces back to something Wizards of the Coast tried to do to its own community a few years back. Now, to be clear, we're not intending to badmouth the most popular role playing game system of all time. We're pointing out that when starting a business, you have to assess risk, and we did. We feel like we needed to be mindful in protecting our core base, which we'll get into in a bit. Now, Adam, you've been playing role playing games a lot longer than most people watching this know. What was the system that hooked you?
Oh, it was Dungeons and Dragons, for sure. Was introduced to it in freshman year of high school. Actually, one of the GMs was a guy named Ken Ralston, who you could actually look up. He was a very, very early luminary in tabletop role-playing games, largely Dungeons and Dragons, and he was a teacher at our school for a while, and it was awesome. I mean, I loved it. There's no doubt about it that it's the most popular system for a reason. There's a lot going for it, and like Zach said, I had nothing but love for Dungeons and Dragons, but again, clearly we had to make some business decisions that would affect both our business and our community, and that's why we went with a different route.
Hey, welcome back to the Quest Log. I'm your host, Zachary Hunchar, and with me, as always, my co-host and co-creator of QuestXR, Adam Lesh. We're 4 episodes in, and we've covered why QuestXR exists and why we're funding it through BackerKit, the differences between D&D and the basic role-playing system. Today we're going to go a little more into the weeds, but this matters. Specifically, why QuestXR was being originally built on Chaosium's basic role-playing system. And there's a bigger story here than we just like the using percentile dice. This one touches everything from a licensing fight that shook the entire tabletop role-playing game industry to where we want to take QuestXR's system support next. Let's clear something up first, because I don't think we've said this clearly on camera before. Adam, you have a real history with tabletop role-playing games. This isn't you learning the hobby through QuestXR.
Oh no, yeah. Yeah, I've started playing Dungeons and Dragons back in high school, freshman year, in fact. Like I mentioned a minute ago, or maybe in the intro if you saw it, I was introduced to it by a guy named Ken Ralston, who again you can look up, and absolutely fell in love with it instantaneously. Spent many years playing Dungeons and Dragons, including going to Gen Con when it was in Wisconsin, and in fact running as a GM modules there many times, several times, using Dungeons and Dragons. I then, over the years, transitioned to some other things. One of the things I found I really enjoyed was sort of revisiting movies using a game system. And so the very first one I did was The Warriors, and I used Dungeons and Dragons for that, which was really quite fun and tricky. Introduced all kinds of different weird characters that made it a little bit more lively, and people. One of the funniest moments was when a lot of the different characters, the warrior who are playing the players who are playing the warriors, encounter the female group of gangbangers and would instantly just recognize them and run the other direction. So it was a whole encounter I set up that went nowhere. Later on, I moved to GURPS, Generic Universal Role Playing System, which I liked because it had more different genres that we could work with, more flexibility. And one of the things they lacked at the time was any kind of cinematic type experience. So if someone got shot by a gun, they're pretty much dead. And so you had to have a situation where I ran Die Hard, where the players got to play the bad guys. And I as a GM, had Don McClane pop up every now and then. John McClane. Don McClane. John McClane pop up every now and again and spray the room with bullets, right? So he couldn't kill everybody instantaneously. So I created like a cinematic version of GURPS so that we could keep the game going for several hours, which we had to at Gen Con. And later on, GURPS created a cinematic supplement. So it was really interesting to see that, how ours dovetailed and how they were different. Kept playing for years, different systems, RuneQuest, Pathfinder. I've done a lot of different types of gaming over the decades.
It's fun because like we talk about how the differences structurally on our approach was, you were national treasure in museums and I was role playing game, but the reality is you were just as much role playing games as I, and I like museums, but maybe not quite at the level you do. But all of these things fed together very nicely.
Yeah, I think what was amazing was, yeah, I was not thinking about role playing games when I first conceived this. I was more thinking along the lines of escape rooms and creating virtual escape rooms in interesting locations like museums. When you brought up the RPG, it was an instant resonance, right? It wasn't like I resisted or said maybe. There was really an interesting idea that just was struck me why didn't I think of this first? So yeah, no doubt about it that I kind of should have, but didn't.
And it's good because like I hate escape rooms. They're the worst thing for me. I hate the pressure of you have 1 hour to solve this. Like I just want to have fun. But luckily, luckily we've got the role playing section to kind of tie everything together. So it's pretty cool.
And there's a lot in
Two.
common. I mean, honestly, there's a lot in common between escape rooms and really even something like a module, right? Because they're usually sort of have this beginning, middle, and end. You are playing with a group of people. You are to a degree role playing because ordinary people don't get stuck in rooms, and the concept really does gel, and you can actually use what we're building to create a virtual escape room. It's not out of the question. We never lost that. We just enhanced it.
Right. And maybe without the timer, because I know that with my Sunday D&D group, if I said you have 1 hour to solve this, they would lose every time. They're so slow. So slow.
Honestly, though, is actually still one of the encounters types I set up is something that is timed. So you can create a timed encounter that you have to solve in a in with it with a clock. So it's and it could actually add some fun, especially if you're running around a location.
Yeah, just be careful where you're at. Don't go into streets and do not hang around schools. Just straight out, do not do that. D&D system is one of the most popular and the one that people tend to think of by default. Um, let's dive into why we didn't build something that would be, real heavy D20 shaped.
Yeah, as you alluded to, and again, no ill will toward Hasbro Wizards of the Coast. They have something called the OGL, which is open game license, and people have been building Dungeons and Dragons based content for years, decades. A few years ago, a leaked version of it came out that looked like they were modifying it to basically allow them to reclaim any content that used D&D IP and make it theirs. Just take it away from the creators. What that didn't had fully come to pass for sure, but the threat of that caused quite the uproar in the community, just as we were selecting our system. And so we reviewed that whole thing and we just decided it was too risky. And too risky for two reasons. Not just for us as a business and how the content we create could be reclaimed, but a big part, maybe the largest part of QuestXR is for game masters and homebrew creators to create content on the platform, which will continue to belong to them, not us. And so, if that were to happen, and we built this huge community of content creators and GMs, and had that rug pulled out from under us, we were very concerned. And so we went looking for a system we could use that was not a possibility.
We lose track of this content that we've been playing since we're kids, and it's something that's sort of part of us. There's the human angle on it, and I don't have I we touched upon it briefly before, but the idea that this was something that was just fandom. There were small businesses that were doing these things. Even TSR at its heyday had a lot of popularity and was doing well, but once it became part of Wizards and Wizards became part of Hasbro, you got stockholders to answer to and massive legal departments, and it stops being just a hobby and it becomes a business.
And that's the choice they made, right? And we don't judge that at all, but we have to make our own best decision. So we went looking, right? We went looking for other systems, as we mentioned. One of the first ones I looked at was GURPS, actually, from
Right.
Steve Jackson Games, because one of the things that once we ruled out Dungeons and Dragons, I wanted something that could be multi-genre, because what I wanted to build was not something that was so fantasy limited that we
Right.
would not be able to have some other types of storylines, right? That would play out within campaigns. So GURPS was the first one I thought of because it was the one I was the most familiar with. But that also is protected IP. Again, no judgment, great, you know. So we didn't want to use that one. We went looking, and we ultimately found BRP, a spin-off of RuneQuest and Call of Cthulhu. So that was exciting. Really, it was, and it turns out, after doing some research, that Chaosium's products is in aggregate are the second most popular systems that are used out there. So
Right.
that worked out for us as well, as we found while Dungeons and Dragons is by far the biggest. With Chaosium systems, we were able to be able to attract a community who already knows the platform, already knows how the rules work, and we could build out Call of Cthulhu, RuneQuest, etc. type encounters, campaigns, and quests all within the system.
And there's some nice aspects to Chaosium system. Uh, there's like basic simplicity on the idea of class builds. In D&D, you're building a class and everything is revolving around that. Whereas this is you're just you're a person and you gain levels and you're really gaining skill enhancements. You're getting better at things, and I think that may have been easier for us to start out with anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think technically, I'm not sure it would have made a huge difference, but it does. The math works out fairly easy when you are like 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 you said. Everything is based on skills. So you have skills. Some of them are called magic skills. Some of them are power skills, psychic skills, superpowers, all kinds of things. And but in the end of the day, they're kind of all the same in that as you use them, you can level them. So you get better at them, and it's just a percentile roll. So the math is pretty simple. The characters can grow. There aren't any classes at all. You can create your build in any way you want to. You can add skills along the way. So you're not locked into anything. And it's a flexible system, and we can add our own twists to it. One of the things we've talked about a lot is how we were influenced by lit RPG, game lit type literature. And one of the more popular things there is something like a skill tree, where you unlock further skills as you get better at X skill that are related, and you can morph them, change them, they can evolve. That's something we can build into a system. We haven't yet. We are still pretty strictly the way the handbook works, the BRP handbook works, but we can do that down the road.
Right, and you touched upon it as well. One of the things that's nice about it is that it's sort of genre agnostic. Um, we both know the fantasy sword and sorcery stuff, but there's also superhero aspects, and for me the horror genre I'm very fond of, and it can work in all of them. It works in all of them. It not just it can work. It is presently working.
Yeah, we didn't. We don't. We're jumping into a system that is built to support that, which was great. Important. I mean, not necessarily a deal killer for something else, but at the end of the day, I'm very happy that we're able to do that. Even the quests we've begun to build in the system that are available right now, really across the board, we got some fantasy ones, we got some sort of basic ones, and so you can create a character in any genre at this stage of the game and actually play somewhere else. So you could build a modern character and go play in our fantasy zombie scenario if that's what you want to do.
Right.
We don't restrict that.
What about this system makes this a good fit for our app, especially when you're going to be moving around and doing things? Is there something that you feel is the key selling point on it?
Well, since you can apply a skill, so one of the interesting aspects of it is that we're building out puzzles and riddles and more mystery aspects of things. And there are skills in BRP that you can trigger to maybe help you decode a cipher, right? So there's interesting ways that you can use the skill set to advance the game. You're a little more limited, right, if you're playing on a phone and you're on location from breaking out a pen and paper and trying to scribble something down and figure it out. That still can be done, and it's still baked into the system. And everything we've done to date can be solved by your own brain, with the exception of combat. That you don't need any of the skills or tricks; it's all there. But if you want to cast a spell to maybe decode something, then pick up the spell and do it.
Right. So perhaps a nice way of bridging the gap on D&D is that in D&D, your dungeon master establishes a time when you've moved to the next level, and maybe you get better on these things, or you get new skills or whatever, new spells. In BRP, you could get almost immediate benefits to doing things because you get better at something, and you're better at it now. So it's a little easier the next time you go in. And this is helpful when you're trying to solve a puzzle, or even during combat, if you're trying to sneak around the combat, or you're trying to escape the combat. You can bravely run away
Right.
a little
That's
bit.
so fun. I'll drop a little hint here.
Yeah.
In the app, your characters are completely fluid. So you could literally play one of our quests, go back, drop a bunch of skills that you used, pick up some new ones, and go play a different quest where those skills might be more handy. That's something that I assume will lock down once the product truly launches. But at this point, because you're limited in the number of characters you can use, I wanted to give the opportunity to really just play with that character. So the character is extremely fluid, and you can do whatever you want with it in the meantime. So a little hint: if you need to pick up a skill that you think you need as part of one of our quests, you can do it.
We've partnered with Chaosium, and maybe partnered's not the right word, but we've had conversations with the team at Chaosium.
We have their
Um,
blessing.
we have their blessing. We've had various conversations with them. We've explained to them what we're doing. They seem intrigued. Obviously, they are crazy busy with all of the conventions they go to and all the product that they're putting out. In fact, when we were launching our preliminary part of the backer kit, we happened to do it the same week that they were launching something. So that's actually led to us pushing ours back a little bit because we don't want to be sort of cannibalizing from either group. Um, I guess the question is that they're not just they okay. So they formed their open license, and there were a bunch of them that did that back when Wizards put their new license out. So there were companies, yeah, the ORC. So there were like Chaosium, Paizo, who does the Pathfinder series, Kobold Press, Green Ronin. There's a lot of other smaller ones as well. Free League, they have some. Was there a specific reason why, out of all of them, we picked Chaosium?
Yeah, I think the bottom line was that first of all they were the most developed. Their system is by far the most developed, I believe. It's cross genre, and it's the sec in aggregate across all their Chaosium's product that use BRP. It's the second biggest group. So we wanted to be able to reach out to the existing community of BRP of a community of a particular player set of players who play a certain system, and the largest group was BRP.
I have to say how generally excited I am. The idea of Call of Cthulhu being part of our system. I love that stuff. That makes me so happy. Um,
Horror is a great genre, by the way, for on location stuff too. It fits so nicely into some semi dark museum. You're rounding corners and suddenly running into who knows what.
I also excited at the idea of a sort of a generic quest that can be played in anyone's home. The idea of like you start the quest and there's a strange noise in the house and you have to go investigate. Just don't kill your roommate. That's all I got to say. Do not kill your roommate. Did anything happen that we need to take into consideration with AR? Because the basic role playing system wasn't really built for phones, and then one day having GPS aspects. Is there anything that you see is going to be a problem in the short term, or something you're really excited about?
No, yeah, I don't see a problem. It's different. It's a different experience. I mean, we're trying to recreate the tabletop role playing game experience on a phone, in location, or even like you said, around a table or at your home. The challenges are some of the things where the there's no heavy exposition that's really particularly convenient. You can create videos and audios that you know act like the GM and give the exposition that's necessary. But and combat is much more streamlined. You don't have to necessarily declare intent. You just choose the weapon you're going to fight with, and off you go. So we've streamlined it a bit for the phone. And it's again, we talk about AR a lot, but AR is only a part of this. There are all different kinds of encounters that include puzzles that are not necessarily AR related. There are combat is AR at this stage of the game. The audio and video are useful for transitions or for GM exposition. So I don't see there being any problems. We're adapting BRP to what we're doing, but character creation is identical. The combat back and forth, basically turn-based, round-based combat is the same, other than, like I said, some streamlining just for the sake of declaring intent makes no sense in the system. So things like that. But bottom line is, I've imported the vast majority of weapons, armor, skills. We've done the basic skills, the physical skills, the magic skills, and the psychic skills are all imported straight out of the handbook. So, and we're gonna, certain things we don't worry about right now is encumbrance and some stuff like that. But down the road, as we get more sophisticated, we'll certainly add that back in. But I don't see it as being problematic. I see it's kind of fun when I'm battling a goblin in AR space and I'm just picking which skill I want to use at any given time. Some of which I can't. You have to equip a weapon, but you could throw out a spell anytime you want to.
If someone if has only ever played Dungeons and Dragons, or maybe Pathfinder, is there anything that they need to know before they jump into QuestXR?
As you noted, the systems are pretty different in terms of, well, almost everything other than the role playing, right? So when you look at the mechanics of the system, they're quite different. Not D20, they're D100. Creating a character doesn't include any kind of class. You just pick up skills, and when you're creating your character, you have a bunch of points you can apply and grab skills. So yeah, they're pretty different in that sense. In terms of the role playing storytelling aspect of it, sky's the limit. So there is, I think, as similar as any RPGs. So I would certainly recommend perusing the handbook, or there's actually it's all downloadable, by the way. You can get it for free. There's a quick start guide or something like that, which you can pick up and get a sense of how it works. We're adding some help stuff into the app itself. You can actually ask. We actually have a help avatar you can talk to in real time and ask questions, mostly about how we're different, how we apply BRP. Not that we're different exactly, but how we've applied it and implemented it within the system. But ultimately, we're going to be adding more and more videos that talk a little bit about the differences, try to get you familiar with it. Zach is the face of our Dungeons and Dragons versus BRP video series.
That's why I'm wearing my fancy wizard hat. I had been wearing my wife's witch hat in the first video, but it didn't fit my head properly. Also, my wife's not a witch, but she had one. I don't know why, actually, but it was a nice prop to use. Something to think about. Okay, so for those of you at home that are still with us, thank you. We really appreciate you sticking through this. Just keep in
One
mind.
more thing we should say, right?
Oh,
Are
sure.
you planning on wrapping up?
I'm moving towards that.
Yeah, so the one last thing I think we should bring up is that while we're BRP right now, we dream big. We would love to implement every system under the sun on Quest. One of our one of our real big goals is to make characters compatible across systems. So you might create a character in BRP, but then play them in GURPS as an example, and we would handle that transition right on platform. And obviously, um, we would be more than excited to have a conversation with Wizards of the Coast about working with them on Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm going to be 100% clear. That is a notion and a hope and a dream, and not one single word has been exchanged between us. So it's just something that we have high aspirations for this platform. We think it can support any system, and we're looking forward to the day when we've launched and we have a nice solid community set, and we can start talking to some other players in the community.
And that I think is part of the key there is the idea of, with all of these businesses where we want to mount them professionally and respectfully to not only the content owners, but to those of you that are in the community as well. We want you to create content, and we want you to know that the content you create is yours, even if it ties to another existing system. Given what we mentioned earlier with what was happening with the open game license changing or planning to be changed, there was a lot of concern. People were thinking, hey, I put a lot of work into this thing, and then I don't want to lose it because someone unilaterally changed the rules. So a lot of the work that would happen would be actually papering everything, really having our attorneys go over everything to protect everyone involved, because we want this thing to work, and we want you to really love using it. We don't need to be scared that it's just...
And I think one thing we didn't bring it up this time was that content that GMs and homebrew creators create is monetizable on the system. Right now, we're not doing that. It's all free, but eventually, if you create a module and want people to pay like per player a couple of bucks or $5 or whatever it may be to play that module, then you can do that. And so again, we don't want people to get invested in this, start monetizing, making some kind of income off of it, and then get the rug pulled out from under them. So yes, exactly. We will be dotting our I's and crossing our T's, and making sure that if we bring another system on board, the content creators, whether they be QuestXR or independent people, are all protected.
And to be clear, I like to dot my T's and cross my I's. Sorry about that. It's an old one. So just remember, QuestXR runs on a 40-year-old system, on a license built specifically so no single company could pull the rug out from under it. And that's not the end of the story, that's just the beginning of it. So thank you for being with us. Next time we're going to jump into something that will split the room probably quite a bit. We're going to dig in a little bit on AI. We've touched upon it before, but I think we're going to have a longer conversation about it. And don't forget that the pre-launch reservation is still live on BackerKit.
And don't forget to even a follow helps us, right? So it's not just about giving us money. We are excited to have you guys join us on BackerKit as a follower or our Discord channel and give us feedback. Talk to us about what you want, what you like, what you don't like. We are excited to have these conversations. We are all about the community. We're building this because we are both fans of tabletop role-playing games. We are both fans of technology, and we think these things can work in harmony, and we want to, work with our community to generate some exciting stuff down the road.
So once again, I'm Zachary Hunchar, he's Adam Lesh, and this is the Quest Log. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time.